What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. We got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, Arkansas about to head down to Arlington to take on the Texas A&M Aggies. We're going to talk to Jeff Tarpley at Gig 'em 247, give us a little bit of insight on the Aggies. And Curtis Wilkerson is also going to join us to talk a little bit about Arkansas. All that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. And before we get started, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. Be sure to follow the page if you haven't done so already. Be one of 90,000 Razorback fans to do so. Also, throw us a like on the video. Also available on YouTube. Throw us a thumbs up on YouTube. Interact with the video. Share the content if you think somebody else might like it. But be sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell on YouTube so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. Hog Sports is just $1 right now for your first month at HawgSports.com. If you haven't thrown us a 5-star review, please do so. But I want to thank everybody for making Hog Sports Live Arkansas's highest-rated podcast. Here's my favorite latest review. Trey Biddy has a face for radio and a voice for print. But if you can get over that, he is the best, and I mean the best college football media member of all time. He gets the Arkansas fan base, he does his homework, and he never cheats us. I'm always excited for the podcast to come out each week. Kind of a backhanded compliment there, Taste the Rainbow. Thanks, I guess. Anyway, I appreciate the 5-star review there. Face for radio. Ouch. All right, Arkansas, Texas A&M, 6 o'clock, September 24th, 2022. Arkansas is number 10. Texas A&M is 23 in the AP poll. This is a series that goes back to 1903. Arkansas and Texas A&M played for 65 consecutive years up until after the 1992 season. Arkansas has a 42-33-3 record against Texas A&M, although that's changed the last several years since Texas A&M and Arkansas renewed the Southwest rivalry back in 2009. Texas A&M has a 9-4 edge over Arkansas in the series since it was renewed. 5 of those games that Texas A&M won were decided by a touchdown or less. 3 of those decided in overtime, all Texas A&M wins. So a lot of close games, even though Arkansas had that 9-game stretch where they lost. Arkansas won 20-10 last year. KJ Jefferson was banged up in that game. Malik Hornsby played pretty much a quarter of football in the second half and helped Arkansas preserve the win. So it's an interesting matchup, as it always is. I want to get to this schedule information real quick because for some reason they announced the football schedule in the middle. Like, I don't know why they did it this way, but I guess it was like on a Tuesday they announced the football schedule. So Arkansas plays Western Carolina in Little Rock on September 2nd. This is 2023 again. I'm not going to go through the whole schedule. You can look up the schedule if you want to. What I'm going to say, though, is the first 3 games are in Arkansas, Little Rock, Fayetteville. And then the next 4 games are SEC games. Not a single one of those games is in the state of Arkansas. And part of that is due to playing Texas A&M and Arlington, and Arkansas is the home team that year. LSU, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama. It's a tough opening stretch of SEC games all away from Arkansas. During this stretch, there's also a bye week. But from September 23rd to November 4th, there is 1 game in the state of Arkansas. That's 7-week period, 1 game in the state of Arkansas. Now, I'm not saying this is like bad for the team and stuff. People are like, buck up, they're going to have to play a tough schedule. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about for the fans. You going to buy season tickets? I mean, think about this. September 23rd through November 4th, Arkansas plays Mississippi State in Fayetteville. 1 game. It's bad for recruiting. It's bad for the tickets. I mean, you finish it pretty strong with November 11th, 18th, and 25th, Auburn, Florida International, and Missouri. But this is also the year where it's not as sexy a home schedule. So that's all I'm going to talk about. I like Josh Pate's comment on it. He wasn't even going to talk about it because college football doesn't know how to release a schedule. Go check out Josh Pate on the Late Kick. Don't you hate, like the worst thing that can happen, it seems like, I know 21st century problems, but like when your internet goes out, and you're like, you're telling you're frustrated, everything, because nothing works. When your internet goes out, your computer's not working, your phone, your television, nothing works. Your spouse is like, hey, Trey, what's going on with the internet? And you're just, you say something you shouldn't have said, and then next thing you know, you're in a fight. Your kid's coming like, Daddy, my internet won't work. My phone's not working. It's the worst thing that can happen. So all of that's happening because why? Because you don't have Ozarks Go. You got some other internet service. If you had Ozarks Go, you wouldn't be dealing with it. Okay, this is something that I did over a year ago. I just did it on my own. I had been through 3 different services. All of them had problems. These guys showed up at my house, connected, and I never have thought about them since because it has always worked. I'm never going up and unplugging my router, plugging it back in, trying to figure out what's working. Is it the internet or is the site down or any of that stuff? It's never the internet. If you're curious about Ozarks Go and if it's available in your area, you can go to ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG. Go to ozarksgo.net/hawg, and you can find out if they have coverage available in your area. If you're on desktop, there's a little icon that says check availability. If you're on mobile, there's a little 3 bar at the top where a drop-down menu comes down and you can check availability. But think, if you have Ozarks Electric, then it's most likely going to be available. And also if you don't, in some areas. But think north of the tunnel in northwest Arkansas and think eastern Oklahoma also. Again, go to ozarksgo.net/HAWG and you can find out more information about them. But we've been looking for somebody to partner up with for a long time. And again, you guys know that I'm not going to endorse something I don't believe in. And so I've been with those guys for over a year now. They've been fantastic, and I thought I'd share. So thanks to Ozarks Go for sponsoring this video. All right, where do we want to go now? Take a little bit look at Miami and Texas A&M. Texas A&M improved against Miami 17-9. Now, Miami did have success running the ball, 36 carries for 175 yards. That's 4.9 yards a pop. I think Arkansas probably has a better running game than them. The problem with Miami is they couldn't put it in the end zone. Tyler Van Dyke was 21 of 41 for 217. All I remember seeing at the beginning of this game was this guy's going to the NFL. He's an NFL draft pick at quarterback, and they really limited him. Max Johnson, 10 of 20, 140 yards. Probably could have done better, but there were some other things I think that weren't necessarily up to him. Was sacked 3 times. Devon Achane, 18 carries for 88 yards. This has not been a prolific Texas A&M offense, and this does not need to be the week for Arkansas to make them realize hey, things are finally clicking. It's a good matchup on both sides of the ball with Arkansas's offense versus Texas A&M defense. It's a good matchup for the right reasons because Texas A&M has been pretty stout on defense. They're only averaging 8.4 points per game given up. Pretty impressive stuff for A&M's defense and not a lot of yards either. The other matchup, and then, of course, Arkansas is putting up 500 yards of offense, So that's a good matchup for the right reasons, prolific offense against a stout defense. The other way around, where it's Texas A&M's offense versus Arkansas's defense, it's a good matchup for the wrong reasons. Texas A&M has not been very productive, only accounting for 315 yards a game. Arkansas gives up 352 passing yards a game alone. Now, tackling for Arkansas has been an issue. A lot of people have pointed to coverage, and coverage has been an issue too. But if I told you that Missouri State had 54 rushing yards in the game, it's close to that, and Arkansas gave up 200-plus yards in yards after contact, you would be able to deduce pretty quickly that the tackles that were missed were coming in the passing game, not against the run game. So that's been a big problem too. It hasn't just been poor coverage, it's been also poor tackling. So that's got to improve in this one. They've spent a lot of time working on that this week. We'll see how it works out, but this does not need to be the breakout game for Texas A&M's offense. Danny West has some great stories on recruiting battles. Always enjoy his stories. You should go check that out. But, if you look at this game on paper, when it's just recruiting classes, Texas A&M's 5-year average is 7th. Arkansas's 5-year average is 30th. Just on paper, this should be a Texas A&M game. However, Arkansas's transfer class ranking was 10th last year, and we know there's a major impact. Texas A&M relying on a lot of young players from the number 1 recruiting class in the country last year, and also, past years. They were 8th in 2021. There's a lot of guys that are contributing from that class too, but they did not bring in a lot of transfers. In fact, only 2 transfers. But I would encourage all of you need a VIP subscription to read Danny West content, mostly recruiting angled stuff you can't find other places, a lot of well thought out stuff, but he breaks down, the rosters, how they've recruited, and all that stuff too. 90 of Texas A&M's players come from the state of Texas, as you might expect. All right, we're going to hop over to Curtis Wilkerson. Curtis has been taking a long look at the Texas A&M offense, give us a little bit of insight, and we'll get to Jeff Tarpley here in a little bit after this from Gig'em 247. For those of you who don't follow Curtis, you can do so at @KurtWilkerson_. He has been with HawgSports for a good couple of years now. How you doing, Curtis?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm looking forward to my trip to Arlington, of course, and taking in this game. It's a big one. It's the first time that Arkansas is going to be on the road technically this season, even though they're the home team and it's a split crowd. I always thought that was a good way to kind of ease into a road schedule by playing a split crowd game. But first time they're taking the show away from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and just want to get your impressions, your thoughts on this game, just kind of outright. How do you think this game matches up?
Yeah, it's interesting. I really agree with what you were saying earlier. You know, like you don't want this to be the game where Texas A&M figures things out offensively. Obviously, they've been struggling there. I do think they have the right guy at quarterback right now. And it seems like they're, getting healthy or at least getting guys back. Obviously, a couple five-star receivers, freshmen who were suspended. Looks like they're on their way back. They got their center back last week who was coming back from mono, and I think he played every offensive snap. That's actually pretty impressive.
Bryce
you'd
Foster.
Imagine he'll be, you'd imagine he'll be, probably a little bit more in shape and up to the task. So, they're getting some guys back. You talked about the talent. They've got a couple guys, playmakers at the skill positions. You talk about A-Chain, Anaya Smith. Those are a couple guys that scare you if you're the Arkansas defense because they can get out in space and make guys miss. And we talked about Arkansas and some of their tackling woes. So, I think when they're at their best, they're kind of swarming to the football and gang tackling guys. It's going to be important in this one. But at the end of the day, I do like Arkansas here. I think they're obviously better at quarterback. I could see the Razorbacks kind of taking the Appalachian State method of, just kind of controlling the game on the ground behind Rocket Sanders and KJ and just really grinding this thing out. And if they can continue to get pressure on the quarterback, which they've proven to be really good at, and A&M's had some struggles blocking up front, that will bode well. And then obviously, limiting some of those big plays in the passing game and tackling, I think Arkansas will be in a pretty good spot.
Curtis Wilkerson joining us again at @KurtWilkerson_ on Twitter. Curtis, when you look at this offensive line for Texas A&M, it's a big group. But it'll be the biggest offensive line that Arkansas will have faced. I think 6'5", 324 pounds average per man. They've got some big dudes. Arkansas's defensive line has kind of been a strength of this team, though. I mean, we were talking, defensive ends could be a strength, but the middle's played pretty well too. What are your thoughts on the matchup between the A&M offensive line and Arkansas's D line?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And we'll throw Drew Sanders into that too because obviously he plays a big role there too.
Yeah, you have to throw Drew Sanders in there for sure. Yeah, interestingly enough, I don't know that I would have probably taken Arkansas to have the advantage here coming into the season. Obviously, the questions that we had about the defensive line was just replacing a lot of guys there. But, Arkansas's had guys step up. You talk about Zach Williams and Shad Stewart, who have been great. Isaiah Nichols obviously has to be thrown into that mix. And the transfers have been really impressive. I mean, Landon Jackson, Jordan Dominic especially, he's been incredible and really playing limited snaps. I'll be anxious to see if his role kind of increases moving forward with what he's been able to do. Terry Hampton in the middle, I think, has done a really nice job of replacing some of that void of John Ridgway, just kind of commanding some double teams, and that frees up some things for the linebackers. And obviously Drew Sanders has been so impressive. He's just a freak. I just can't remember a lot of guys like Drew Sanders that Arkansas has had on with what they can do with him defensively. And you look on the other side, and you're right, Texas A&M is huge, massive up front, very talented, but they are young, and they have had some struggles. But I look at the guards, and they've looked a little bit vulnerable to me. Obviously, they were without their center for a couple games. I think it really helps them to get Foster back there. We'll see what he looks like in his second week back. But they struggled in pass protection. Up until that Miami game last week, they really weren't getting a whole lot done on the ground either. So I think this is a good matchup for the Razorbacks. And, like I said, if they can continue to get pressure on the quarterback, that does a lot for them. And, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to do that. So if they continue to trend in the right direction, they should be all right.
So Looking at the situation at quarterback, Curtis, you've got. And by the way, I just want to say this first. I think that they should also think about restructuring some things because you make a good point about Dominic. Dominic not having it's just interesting that Dominic hasn't started, and he's second in the SEC in sacks. And Drew Sanders is an inside linebacker who occasionally lines up on the line of scrimmage and occasionally, rushes the quarterback. And he's number one in sacks. So it's like two guys that aren't always put in position to be sacking the quarterback because they're either not on the field or they're playing, inside linebacker, are leading the SEC in sacks. I just think that's pretty impressive. But they do need to think about some things, shaking some stuff up, getting Jordan Dominic in the starting lineup. Probably with Zach Williams also. I think they need to. And I would at this point, I think they should probably work Eric Gregory inside full time at defensive tackle, just the way things have kind of played out with this group. I want to take you to you touched on Max Johnson a little bit. Great name, Max Johnson. 225 of 373. Which is 60% for 2,815 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions with LSU last season. 6 as a starter, and also we didn't see him when they played Arkansas. Nussmeier, they started the freshman against Arkansas instead of Max Johnson, so we didn't see him really. I think he may have thrown 3 passes or something, but we didn't really see him in the Arkansas game. Curtis, me personally, I look at this and think, okay, Haynes King might be a better matchup for them against Arkansas just because of his mobility. And it's not that Max Johnson is a bad athlete. He's just probably the least athletic of any of the quarterbacks Arkansas has faced, and that could be trouble for him the way Arkansas is getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's a good point. Coming into the year, I was a little worried about Haynes King and his ability to run and escape pressure. And you're right. Sam Pittman mentioned that with Max Johnson, he's probably a little more fleet of foot than he gets credit for, but that doesn't make him a burner by any means. And, it's interesting. You look at those numbers and he kind of strikes you as a game manager, which is probably what Texas A&M needs. But he does have some big play potential with that arm. If you look back to last year at LSU, and obviously it's a different situation with, the weapons that he has at A&M and their scheme and things like that. But, he accounted for 16 completions that went for more than 40 yards last season. That was second in the SEC. So, for an Arkansas secondary that's had some struggles in coverage, and this guy that, he can heave it, he can sling it a little bit now, so they're going to have to be aware of that. But, yeah, I'm anxious to see how he looks in his second start. Obviously, if you look at the statistics alone from that Miami game, you're thinking, well, did they really get that much better there? And maybe not by the numbers, but I just thought they looked a little bit more efficient and a better flow. It seemed like he had a better command of the offense. So, King, the guy that's the dual threat that usually gives Arkansas problems, but I think Johnson's probably their best bet for what they're looking for right now to kind of get that offense going a little bit.
And you touched on a little bit Nia Smith and Devon Achane. You talked about Evan Stewart and Chris Marshall, the 2 5-star freshmen wide receivers that should be ready to go this week. So they've got some weapons, although some of them are improving. It feels like it's Achane and Smith have been kind of the guys in the passing game and the rushing game with trying to get some more freshmen some action. But I'm curious your thoughts on the secondary. What would you do, Curtis? Because there needs to be some shakeup with some players. They're getting Miles Slusher back. We don't know on Ladarius Bishop, but what would you do, particularly at safety? I think cornerback is probably fairly well set, but what would you do in the secondary to adjust things?
Yeah, well, man, if I had a great answer for that, maybe they'd be paying me the big bucks. Right. But it's interesting. I'm really anxious to see what they do there. Obviously, I feel like you're in a tough situation right now with Simeon Blair. He's a team captain. He's a leader out there defensively, but he struggled last week, and so you kind of have to look at what you're going to do there. Jaden Johnson was a guy that struggled back there at nickel. I would imagine that there's going to be some change there. I think it does start with Slusher. He's probably one of your best options. And where do you put him? He's so experienced there at safety. Mm-hmm. But, he's your starting nickel coming into the year. Maybe you do slide him back to safety, and do you put Brini at nickel? He's experienced there. Maybe that's a better suited position for him. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see. You think about some other names there. Kari Johnson, a guy who played a lot of snaps in this game against Missouri State? Do you find a more expanded role or a better place to put him? But guys are just going to have to play better and step up. And I know Arkansas is really looking to figure out who their best 5 or 6, I guess, depending on your look, that they can have back there. And we'll see. And, Malik Chavis is another guy you have to consider. Do they really like him there at corner over Hudson Clark, or are they going to drop him back and give him a look at safety? I don't know, man. They've got some options. They've got to keep pushing the right buttons and the combinations. Kind of reminds me of Eric Musselman and the basketball team early in the year. Mm-hmm. You see them mixing and matching so much, and eventually they tighten that thing up to their top 6 or 7 guys, and some combinations work and some don't. So, hopefully the Razorbacks figure that out on the gridiron here pretty soon, because it is, obviously the most glaring weakness for this team right now.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what the answer. I don't know if they're going to answer their questions this week or make the moves necessary that I think we're all seeing, because I think it's probably going to be a one last chance to get things straightened out, and we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, there's some concerns back there, and I agree. I don't think necessarily the guys that should be playing are playing. And as far as, it means a lot that Blair's a captain, and I don't mean to come down on Blair. It doesn't mean I'm out on him. It just means I have some questions now. But I can remember Jermichael Winston was a captain for Arkansas on the defensive line and ended up losing out on that job and, played as a backup, but he was a captain that year. So it can happen, but we'll see what Blair does. I think they're probably going to give him another shot back there. But, again, doesn't mean – I don't like to call out anybody. It doesn't mean I'm out on Simeon Blair. It just means I'm not sold right now. So he's got something to prove. All right, Curtis, you want to catch us up real quick with basketball recruiting? What's going on in that sport?
Yeah, well, there's always stuff going on with basketball with Eric Musselman. It's unreal. Sure. But, last weekend they had 3 unofficial visitors kind of getting a head start on that 2024 class. Dallas Thomas, a 4-star wing out of Little Rock Parkview, made his second visit to campus. David Castillo, he's a 5-star combo guard. He's out of the Tulsa area, Bartlesville, Oklahoma. He was back on campus making his second visit. I thought it was really interesting. Both of those guys actually visited together for the first time unofficially last year for the Texas football game. And both of those guys seemed really impressed with the way that the atmosphere carried over, even though Arkansas was playing an FCS opponent. I think that's a testament to the crowd. But, those 2 guys. And then Jalen Shelley, this is a 6'7", 6'8" wing out of Frisco, Texas. Interestingly enough, he's the younger brother of Jason Shelley, the Missouri State quarterback. It's probably a name we're not going to forget anytime soon, but convenient, worked out to get him on an unofficial as well. He picked up a Razorback offer while he was in town. Mm-hmm. So, Arkansas getting out ahead in that 2024 class would be, quiet this weekend since the team is on the road. But I would imagine they're going to have a pretty solid cast of visitors coming for that Alabama weekend. Just like football, I think they're kind of saving up to get their big fish in. Bayfall, Hassan Diop, a couple really highly regarded 6'10" prospects out of Colorado. They were supposed to visit last week, and they pushed that back. They're eyeing that Alabama weekend, so we'll see if that happens. Right now, it's sounding promising. Those are 2 big targets for the upcoming class. All
right, Curtis. Appreciate you joining us, brother.
Always.
All right, everybody. That's Kurt Wilkerson. Again, follow him at @KurtWilkerson_. He's been with us for a couple of years now and does just a fantastic job, especially basketball. Basketball recruiting is where Curtis really shines. Curtis also did a recent article. He always does 5 burning questions and keys to victory. I'm not going to go in depth on those, but I'm just going to go over some of the questions that he asked. Is Arkansas ready to take the show on the road? Obviously, technically not a road game, but still going on the road to play in front of a split crowd. Which running back rules the day? It's a great question, too. Is it Rocket Sanders or Devon A-Chain? I'm pretty sure it's A-Chain. I know it's A-Chain, but I'm not sure if it's Devon or Devon. Devon A-Chain. Devon. I worked so hard to make sure I got the last name right. I kind of skipped on the first name. But which one of those running backs? A-Chain is a 100-meter, 200, 4x100-meter relay All-American. So he's got some blistering speed. If you miss a tackle on this dude, he's going to house it on you. So better get tackling shored up. Who wins the battle of weaknesses? Obviously, Arkansas's defense, pass defense especially, Texas A&M's offense overall. Will Arkansas clean up the missed tackles? Do the Aggies have answers for KJ Jefferson? I was talking with some friends about this last night, and I was just thinking, what if Texas A&M had KJ Jefferson? I know Everybody's wanting to spit on the ground if you're an Arkansas fan. But just imagine, like, preparing for a guy like that. I've never really just kind of sat down and really thought about that matchup. Arkansas playing a guy with a team with KJ Jefferson at quarterback, the way he's playing right now. I think I'd feel a lot different about this game. Keys to victory always turnovers, penalties, special teams. The TPS report, injuries, of course, always play a big role. Arkansas could be getting some guys back, and the red zone. That's we talked about the Miami game. Miami outgained Texas A&M 392 to 264. Had 27 first downs compared to just 16 for the Aggies. 10 more minutes of possession time. So how did the Hurricanes lose? They didn't punch it in the end zone. They didn't score when they got in the red zone. Texas A&M ranks 15th nationally in red zone defense. So that's a big one. We always kind of do the same keys to victory because turnovers, penalties, special teams, injuries are always key parts of the game, and then throw in one kind of a different one. All right. We're going to go over to Jeff Tarpley now. Jeff Tarpley is the senior writer for Gig'em 247, 24/7. I always get frustrated when people say 247 because it's 24/7. But you can follow him at 247tarp on Twitter. Jeff, how you doing, man?
Great, guys. How are you all doing?
We're doing fantastic over here. Looking forward to getting over to Arlington. I'm sure you'll be down there. We'll see you again. But wanted to just jump right into this, Jeff, with you. We always do kind of a behind enemy lines thing. We're going to kind of stick to that script. I was wondering if you could tell our listeners and our watchers the latest with Texas A&M injuries and also some suspensions they've had, who's been out and who might be returning for Texas A&M.
Well, Jimbo Fisher suspended 4 players, all freshmen, the day of the Miami game. All 4 are expected to be back per Fisher at his Monday press conference. They are wideouts, Evan Stewart and Chris Marshall, corners Denver Harris and Smoke Bowie. Harris was projected to start last weekend, I believe. Stewart was a walk-in starter back during the spring. Both Stewart and Marshall give A&M a different dimension on offense. So in terms of their ability, not just to, let's say, make plays down the field, but also to generate yards after the catch. So they were missed to an extent last Saturday night against Miami. And that kind of held the offense back and quarterback Max Johnson back a little bit. They've had some injuries in the defensive line. McKinley Jackson played his first game of the season last weekend. Timothy Adelaide, the defensive end, was injured against Appalachian State. He missed last week. He's expected to be back. They're also expected to get back 5-star freshman Walter Nolan, who missed last week. He's a big defensive tackle on the interior, really comes off the ball well. Also, you could see Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, who is a 5-star defensive lineman who was injured in the Under Armour game last January. He missed all of spring ball, basically kind of went through fall camp, but didn't really participate that much. And he's gradually improved his injured knee, and he's to the point now where there's a chance, it looks like there is a chance for him to play on Saturday night and get in his first action of the season as well.
Jeff Tarpley joining us again. You can follow him at at 247tarp. Jeff, Max Johnson and Haynes King, that's obviously been an interesting dynamic. I actually think that, in some ways, with the way Arkansas has been getting after the quarterback, that Haynes King, might give them more escapability, but he just hadn't been playing well. And obviously they moved to Max Johnson, who, maybe manages the game a little bit better, has some more experience. But I do wonder about, not that he's a bad athlete, but just not the same athlete as Haynes King. How do you see that matchup working out with Max Johnson being in the game against Arkansas's pass rush happy defense, I guess you would say?
Well, he faced pressure for Pro Football Focus on about half his dropbacks the other night. And Jimbo Fisher noted, not just coming off the field with ESPN after the game, but in his post-game press conference as well, somebody asked him about Johnson's performance. And he's always made a point that, hey, look, you've got to play you got to play well around the quarterback too. It's not just about the quarterback. And he brought that up in the press conference as well after the game, that A&M has to protect him better. King's legs really hadn't translated into much of an advantage when he did take off. He did have a first down run, converted a third down that actually helped A&M score its only offensive touchdown against Appalachian State. But Johnson took off a couple of times against Miami and was effective doing that. I think, the protection thing, A&M's just going to have to protect him. He's a big guy. He can move around some. He's going to take more sacks. From A&M's standpoint, what he's going to have to do, though, is hold the ball and make more plays down the field against what has been a problematic Arkansas pass defense. And so as far as mobility goes, I think it's less about mobility and just the fact that Johnson's just going to have to get the opportunity to make some plays that Haynes King had the chance to make in his first two starts this season, was not able to, and that's why Max Johnson is now the starter at A&M.
What's your thoughts on this offensive line? You mentioned they've been pressured a little bit. Obviously, I mean, it's a big group, 6'5", 324 average per man, almost 6'6". All of them are, composite four-star recruits. Bryce Foster came back at center after dealing with mono last week. So what is it? I know they're maybe a little bit younger than you would like. I think there's 48 combined starts with these guys. But what is it about this offensive line, and are they going to be able to protect him and give him time to throw?
Well, this is a group that's big. Layden Robinson, the right guard, has been dealing with injury issues of its own. He's not a mobile guy to begin with, and the injuries kind of affected his mobility in terms of playing laterally, mirroring people in pass protection. They're just going to have to do a better job of that. They're going to have to do a better job of communicating. They're going to have to be more cognizant of what they're facing, who's in what gaps, who has who, working together on double teams, combo blocks, that type of thing. They showed some things running power and counter last week. They're trying to make a transition to that as opposed to what they were doing last year via more of a zone running game under old offensive line coach Josh Henson. They'd pull tight end, they'd pull an offensive lineman, sometimes they'd pull two offensive linemen, but they've got to be able to stay on track when they do pull, and the tight end position's been problematic because Wright just came back from injury last week, and the other tight end who's played a lot, Donovan Green, is a true freshman. So they're probably not out of the woods yet. You would think as they play more together that they're going to get better via their communications, via the fact that when they move, that they're going to move more in unison, be in sync more, and be able to cut down on releasing people more so than what they have in the first three games, letting them kind of get a little freer than what they would like. If they can do those things, they'll be a lot better. Mm-hmm. The question is, can they do them Saturday night, or will they still be a work in progress? And then things don't come together until later on in the season. Jeff
Tarpley joining us again at 247-TARP. You can follow him on Twitter. He is the Gig'em 24/7 senior writer. 8.7 points a game, 301.7 yards per game. Those are eye-popping stats produced by the Texas A&M defense. Real quick, what is it about this defense that makes them tick? Are they the kind of group that will come after you? Do they sit back and wait for things to happen? Is it a read and react? What is it about this defense that has made them so stingy this year?
Well, for one thing, they're big. You're just not going to move them off the football very easily. And they're big not just in the front four, but they're also big on the back end of the defense. I mean, when you have corners like Brian George and Jalen Jones playing, you're playing 200-pound plus guys with length. Your safeties are long guys. You got nickel Antonio Johnson, who's 6'2", 6'3", 200 pounds, long-armed, has great range. So you've got a lot of size, and so they shouldn't be that easy to displace. Another thing is they've really, we talk about condensing fronts depending on, reducing your formation, condensing your formations on offense. They've kind of done that on defense from the standpoint that they're really trying to take away your B gap to B gap just inside the tackles. And they're trying to take on the offensive lineman head up to protect the linebacking core that doesn't have a lot of depth right now, and also is not that big. The guys that are playing out there right now aren't any bigger than 230 pounds. They don't have anybody like an Aaron Hansford last year at 240, Buddy Johnson the year before who was at 240. So they don't have that, guy that you can really fill the A gaps against an offense or take on blockers necessarily. So they've really worked to protect those guys. And at times what's happened is that they've been so cognizant of that, they just let things slip through in the running game, and the backers get caught up in the trash a little bit if the offense does get some push, and so that's produced some issues with regard to the run defense. Nonetheless, I think the longest completion allowed all season has been 29 yards, and that was the other night against Miami. They're pretty technically sound. They're experienced on the back end of the defense. They know route combinations, so they see what's coming. And the ability to not allow big plays means that you have to work your way down the field. And we've seen teams do that. They hold the ball for a while, and they go on these long drives, but they stall out. They have a couple of penalties, and then you wind up kicking field goals. That's what happened to Miami the other night. Mm-hmm. So I think A&M is going to try to continue to use that formula, given the fact that more of the big front four guys will be back from injury. They're going to be a little more athletic with those guys, especially the guys out of that 2022 recruiting class. Then hopefully at least from A&M's standpoint, that they're going to get better play up front and maybe cut down on those rushing defense numbers a little bit, and continue, though, to be able to keep people out of the end zone, make those red zone stops, and get enough stops for the offense to win the game.
All right, Jeff, I want to get you out with this real quick. We're going over a little bit, but just how do you see the game playing out? Do you have a score prediction?
I don't really have a score prediction. I think, again, this game's just, it's going to be a one-score game. It's going to be too close to call. It just depends on can either team do what it does best against the other team, and can either team take advantage of what weaknesses the other team has shown. I think for Arkansas, that means running the ball well, but also being able to run the ball well enough to score in the red zone against A&M and continue to generate those types of big plays in the passing game that we've seen. For A&M, that means that they've got to take advantage of Arkansas's runnerabilities from a pass defense standpoint, and also they've got to be able to do that, to score just enough points, and also be able to continue to stop those big plays themselves, which is what they've been able to do. And if special teams have been pretty good this year, they've had a turnover, a touchdown, and a block kick so far this season. So if their special teams continue to flip the field and generate those types of plays, then those can be really, really important in a one-score game. Max Johnson's going to have to continue to manage the game, but his receivers and Devin A-Chain are going to have to be able to create some big plays. Not a lot of them, but just enough to get A&M over the hump. If they can keep Arkansas under 20, get over 20, that's probably their formula for winning the game. I think it's the exact opposite for Arkansas, for them to win the game.
All right, Jeff. Well, I really appreciate having you on, and we'll see you on Saturday in Arlington.
Thanks, Trey.
All right. Jeff Tarpley, everybody. Again, follow him at 247 TARP. Does a great job over there for Gig'em 247. If there's any Texas A&M fans listening here, then do that. Do you have like an internet guy that comes over to your house? You're always having problems, and you're like, oh, let me call my internet guy. I know, not to discriminate at all, but I know a lot of old people that tell me that kind of stuff. You should not be having an internet guy You shouldn't need like, oh, the internet's out again, let me call my guy and have him come over and fix it. You shouldn't be dealing with that. You should have somebody come. This is 2022. Somebody come to your house, put a small incision in your yard like they do at Ozarks Go, and then never hear from them again. Never think about them again. I don't want to think about Ozarks Go all the time, what's going on with the internet and all that stuff. And I don't have to. I've been with these guys for over a year now. Reached out to them recently, talked to them about a little bit of a partnership because this is a product that I believe in. And you can find out if you have Ozarks Go in your area just by going to ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG, and you'll see that at the top right corner. It'll say check availability, or if you're on mobile, there's 3 menu bars. It's a drop down. You can hit check availability, find out if it's available in your area, usually north of the tunnel in northwest Arkansas and in eastern Oklahoma. So go check them out. They offer 1,000 megabits per second. That's what they call their gigabit service, which is what I use. It's 1,000 up and down for those of you who know that, and 100, which is not slow, but it's not as fast, obviously, as the gigabit, but it's still a really quality deal to get 100 up and down on your speed there. So everything you use uses internet. I know it's amazing, but everything you use, and the last thing you want to do is think about outages. And again, I wouldn't be talking about these guys if I didn't believe in them. You can also phone them. I will leave the phone number down in the description on YouTube. But the best way to get in touch with them and to find out more information is to go to their website, again, at ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG. For those listening, if you need the phone number, it's 479-684-4900. But your best bet is to go to the website. All right. Great service that I believe in at Ozarks Go. Where to now? Do we want to get to some questions? Let's get to a couple of questions here. We're not going to go too much longer. I feel like we've covered this from just about every angle. The history of the thing. I mean, Arkansas fans hate Texas A&M fans, and Texas A&M fans hate Arkansas fans. It's just the way it is. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful relationship that they have with each other as far as college football goes. Hate. That's part of it, right? Texas A&M fans have a sense of superiority over Arkansas, although Arkansas has beaten them more times than not. Not recently, but overall series they certainly have. Arkansas fans look at Texas A&M fans as delusional. and think all of their traditions are weird, and they are, but they certainly catch a lot of flack from Arkansas fans. It's a great relationship as far as college football goes. Not a great relationship to have interpersonally with someone, but as far as this goes, it's what's great about college football, isn't it? All right, let's see what we got. Jonathan Mosley says, hey, Trey, do you think our defensive front and linebackers can get after Johnson enough to take A&M out of the game, much like last year? I think that they have a chance to get to him, yeah. I think they've got a really talented offensive line. I just think they're a lot younger. You know, you look at Arkansas's offensive line, and it's 4 multi-year starters, guys that have started, they're on their 3rd or 4th year as a starter. And with Texas A&M, it's more first-year starters, second-year starters, and things like that, some freshmen, sophomores, juniors. So it's a younger offensive line. I think that they should have some success. I don't think that anybody can stop Drew Sanders. I don't know if there's anybody in the country that can stop that guy in college. Drew Sanders is maybe the most talented defensive player I've ever seen at Arkansas. I'm not sure. I don't know what he's doing pass defense, really. He hasn't shown up, I guess, so that's probably a good thing. I'm not sure if the guy has any weaknesses. Tyler Tober says, why do we always get stuck playing Florida in the swamp? They rarely come to Fayetteville. Arkansas has played Florida in the last 5 meetings. 4 of them have been in the swamp. That's fair. 4 games in the swamp and 1 game in Fayetteville. That's ridiculous. And the reasons are 2013, when they changed the schedule, when Texas A&M came into the conference, they gave Arkansas Florida. And then during the COVID year, let's ship Arkansas to Florida, not to mention giving them Georgia also. But that's why. And then here they come up on the schedule again, and it's in Florida. I mean, it's ridiculous. Jonathan Parker says, do you think we should wait until we get the first down to start the fast tempo? There's been a lot of games where we're 3 and outs real fast. And, I mean, that's just what they do. But if they get that first down, then they usually go score a touchdown. Jordy Garcia says Josh Pay's giving the Hogs a lot of love. He has us winning against the Aggies. I saw that. The Ramen Noodle Express has not been as accurate as it's been in the past, so maybe it's due to hit this week. But they love the over, and they like Arkansas. And I think he said their model has Arkansas favored by 2, whereas the line is Texas A&M, I believe, favored by 2, 2.5, something like that. It's interesting. I read a lot of previews, the national media. One guy called, says Arkansas wins in an upset. Like, Arkansas is 10th and Texas A&M is 23rd. Is that an upset on a neutral site? Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, says Arkansas 27-20. College Football News, Pete Fiutak has Arkansas 26, A&M 23. Bleacher Report, Kerry Miller has Texas A&M 24, Arkansas 20. Sporting News, Nick Musial has Arkansas 24, Texas A&M 20. You see a pretty familiar theme. That makes me want to pick outside the 20s because everybody's 20-something. 28-25 says Bill Bender of the Sporting News. This is an article from Gig'em 24/7. Bill Connolly from ESPN has 27-23 in favor of Texas A&M, with a 58% chance of winning, according to their computer. That's their computer, actually. FanDuel has Texas A&M 24, Arkansas 20. I don't think I'm going to pick in the 20s. Fan Nation says 27-20 Texas A&M, Arkansas 27-20. CBS Sports Barrett Sallee picks Arkansas plus 2.5. Says that's the pick. So that would, I guess, have Arkansas winning. Dallas Morning News has a lot of people picking. So most of them pick Arkansas to win. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them have Arkansas winning, and 1, 2 have Texas A&M winning. No scores listed there. But, man, everybody's 20-something to 20-something. Yeah, I'm definitely not picking in the 20s then. I just know how the universe works. A lot of you feel me on that. Where else are we going here? That guy's still getting at me over the voice for print and the face for radio. And is that real? Am I not as handsome as I thought I was? Do I not have a leathery voice? Jonathan Parker says, do you think we should wait until the first down to start the fast tempo? I just read that. Josh Pate. Okay, I'm backed up a little bit. Casey French Fulton says, hope we haven't seen much of our playbook yet. Maybe Hornsby. I would love to see a lot of Hornsby this week. I think they need to use him a lot. I mean, I just think, I've said this before, but when you're trying to milk the clock down, using that guy, like the threat of him getting to the edge, I think will unclog the middle and open up so much. Like when you're a 4-minute offense, you're trying to take the clock down, you don't want to give them the ball back. Most SEC teams are going to be able to stop you if they know you're not going to pass the ball. So I would like to see that. Also, Slusher coming back. Oops, where'd we go? Why did this jump? Also, Slusher coming back. I hope that helps. I agree, Casey. Adrian Jones says we get a lot of women commenting on Facebook on this show. I go to my YouTube analytics, and it's like 98% of your viewers are men. So, I guess we're very popular with men. But we get a lot of women commenting in here. I really appreciate that. Adrian Jones is one of them. She says, Coach Pittman going to have Coach Muss and Coach DVH on the sideline again this year. He talked about that last year, but that would be cool to have him again. That would be great. But they both came there last year. He talked about him a little bit on Wednesday, but he'd never say, like, hey, they're coming. Matt Waitley says, secondary is obviously giving up way too many yards. I think you need to have him there just to keep, I talk about the universe, how that's important. It's like the same reason that I don't go down to the field the last 5 minutes of the game against Texas A&M anymore, because I can't count how many times me and David Basil standing under the goalpost watching Texas A&M like come back in overtime or win at the end of a game. So I just stopped going down there because I know that feeling. So, yeah, I think maybe those coaches need to get to the game. Matt Waitley says, secondary is obviously giving up way too many yards. However, one thing they are doing is getting sacks. They'll figure things out. Yeah, and again, maybe coverage isn't so much the issue as tackling. 200 yak yards given up, yards after contact, but you only got 54 rushing yards. What does that tell you? A lot of those missed tackles are on pass plays, screens, short passes. Tyler Tober says, will we see more Johnson, Green, to Binion this week? I'm concerned with how much we're relying on Rocket. If Johnson is healthy and ready to go, then I think that he needs to get a good number of carries, like 8-10. That's what I would like to see out of him. I think that would be enough relief for Rocket Sanders. And still see the other guys. A.J. Green had a really nice play last year against Texas A&M. Texas A&M can't score 21 points on Arkansas. We'll see. It's not like they hadn't been a little porous. I mean, Missouri State scored 27. Brian Malone says, do you think we see more plays for Hornsby? I would like to. I don't know if we will, but I would like to see more plays from Hornsby. Josh Smith says it's nice to see Razorbacks leading in different categories on offense and defense. Evan Baker says, Trey, glad to see you didn't get bit by the Beyond Meat CEO Saturday night. Yeah. Allegedly, I guess. But I'm sure they don't condone eating people since the products are made of plants or violence, for that matter, given the company there. Weird instance there. Weird situation for sure. In Fayetteville, of all places. Somebody sent me that, and then they're like, anyway, crazy stuff. Dustin Hoofman says, where do you give the edge, Texas A&M revenge game or Arkansas confidence after winning last year? Confidence. Arkansas confidence. And I give the edge, I mean, like when you come down to it, you start looking at things, okay, how the special teams and all that stuff, probably pretty even. They had a big return last game also. But for me, or the game before, they had a big return. They lost App State. But to me, I look at the quarterback situation, and it's nothing against Johnson. I think he's probably a better option for them. He's a game manager. Obviously, his father's Brad Johnson, NFL quarterback, so there's a lot of knowledge there. But to me, I'm taking KJ Jefferson easily. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, Matt, you know who you are. I was talking to him, and he was just bringing that up. Like, what if KJ Jefferson plays for another team? And you got to prepare for him. How do you feel about that? Is a quarterback worth? If in a matchup, if it's a player's worth 1 point if he wins the matchup, how much is a quarterback worth? 4, maybe more than that. It all comes down to quarterback. I mean, so much of it comes down to your quarterback play. And everybody's talking about Texas A&M's antiquated offense. It doesn't work and all this stuff. Go back and look at the numbers. When they had Kellen Mond for 3 years under Jimbo Fisher, they're like 4th in total offense. And, I think maybe they were right in the middle of the pack one year, but usually it's like 4th in total offense, 4th in scoring. And then he's gone. And last year you had Zach Calzada because Haynes King got hurt. And, this year Haynes King got and played well. And you have Max Johnson. Suddenly the offense isn't working, and Jimbo Fisher doesn't know anything anymore. He's a moron. He's old-fashioned. A lot comes down to quarterback. You got a guy who's a returning starter all 3 of those years, and Kellen Mond, who's a 4-year starter. Suddenly the offense works. Interesting how that works. Brian Webb says, ball is beautiful, and yes, sir, it is. I really appreciate that, Brian. Thanks for getting my confidence back up after the face for print and the face for radio and the voice for print. And hey, I think I just proved him right that I have a voice for print. I couldn't even talk. All right, everybody. We did it, didn't we? I think we primed this thing real well. A lot of people have said to me, like, it's actually pronounced primer. It's not a book. I'm not like, it's a primer. Look at the paint. It's the paint that goes on before we put the real paint on, even though we didn't come to paint. But that's what the primer is. It's the layer that goes on first. All right. So next time we see you guys, will be walking around Arlington, AT&T Stadium, probably field level or something like that. I don't know if I'll be exiting out the stadium since it's night and I'm not familiar with the area very much, but we'll be doing a walk and talk right after the game. So tune in for that. All right, everybody. Thanks to Curtis Wilkerson for joining us, and, of course, Jeff Tarpley for joining us from Gig'em247. Follow both of those guys on Twitter and read their content as well. All right, everybody. Throw us a like and a thumbs up if you haven't done so already, and subscribe to HawgSports, which is just $1 right now for your first month, or 30% off. And go check out my friends at ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG, and find out if that service is available in your area. And if it is, you need to jump on it. Trey Biddy stamp of approval. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.